Hello, my name is Dipan Karumsi. I'm the consulting sector leader for life sciences.
Hi, I'm Anand Sekhar. I'm the technology leader for life sciences. Look forward to the discussion today.
So, Anand, maybe you start with elaborating on the role of AI and Gen AI within our life sciences clients.
Yeah, absolutely. What we are seeing, the adoption of AI and Gen AI kind of spans across drug discovery through launch and commercialization. It's not limited to one aspect. But at the same time, I'm fascinated by the discussions we are having, especially around quality, regulatory, supply chain, and those discussions, and even in IT, those discussions are bearing fruit in terms of how we are improving productivity. If you think about AI, where it's much more predictable, you're applying some of the rules, where Gen AI is completely accelerated how things can be built
Yes.
from a commercialization perspective, as well as improving productivity. And we are seeing a lot of solutions and discussions having been had with our clients.
So, what are you seeing specifically around quality that you find interesting?
So if you think about quality, so every pharma and a med device company are looking at how do they manage their pharmacovigilance, how they manage their device safety, how do I address some of the deviations and kappas. The other aspect they're also struggling with is as you start looking at safety, there are also some documentation around it, the work procedures. There are some policies within their manufacturing sites. How do I manage some deviations out of there? And many of these pharma and life science companies have also grown through acquisitions. So they have several of these documents. And how do I consolidate some of these documents? How do I get the one source of truth going forward? That's been a bigger challenge. And we are assisting a few clients in that space.
So, Gen AI, using it for documentation simplification or actually consolidating a number of documents. What have you seen there?
Yeah, we are actively working with one of our clients where we are helping them with looking at how do I take some of these documents, how do I run similarity scores, how do I get a quick summarization of some of these documents. But if I look at longer term, the aspects of if a regulatory change happens, what's the impact on the documentation, right? How do I know which documents need to change? Today's world, it's reliant on some of the subject matter professionals to figure out which documents need to be updated. In tomorrow's world, Gen AI is at least going to figure out the first rev on which documents, which sections need to be updated. It provides you a guidance and improves productivity in that area.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, so it's initial point of finding out which ones should be actually consolidated.
Yeah.
Second, how should you consolidate and how should you maintain it
Manage
long
it.
term? So
Yep.
it's very interesting. And there's a lot of movement in that space around simplification using Gen AI to do large volumes of data ingestion and kind of management.
You said it, took it home.
Yeah,
Right?
that's interesting. So how about let's switch to the healthcare side. How about healthcare provider? What are we seeing in terms of usage of Gen AI there?
So if you look at some of these providers, some of the clients we work with, many of them have data they've collected from treatments. They've collected information from claims. They've and they are looking at a possibility of how they can monetize some of that data. So if you look at how things so the amount of data which is being collected, and some of these companies are getting acquired as well and saying we have a lot of data, we don't know how to monetize it, and there are folks who know how to monetize it as well. So there's a market for somebody who is owning the data, there's a market for who knows how to leverage the data. There is enough data, and to now you've got to drive insights from it, which requires a different set of skills. One person who understands the clinical side, how do I understand that data? The other aspect of it is applying technology around how do I build some large language models around understanding my data and driving some insights, which eventually could be leading up monetizing and figuring out how to drive value from that insights coming out of there.
Fascinating use case, right? Making data that you've compiled over years into revenue generating assets. You know, one of the challenges that I see a lot with our clients is labeling and the complexity of labeling.
If you think about the labeling process, it's a year long or more process where right from how do I generate that label, the revisions which it goes through, the getting the FDA approval around it, then the actual printing of the label and going through. So the entire process takes over a year. So what we are using Gen AI is, can we train the model to generate that first version in a few weeks rather than a few months, and then going through its revision, and then finally getting the label in the market. So the intention is to kind of vastly reduce the I would call a cycle time, which takes from inception right up to label printing. How do I reduce that cycle?
All right, so maybe rounding it out a little bit, what are some of the more promising AI, Gen AI kind of applications that you're seeing? Those are some really good examples. What else are you seeing out there?
The other ones in the supply chain space, right? So if you think about supply chain, you have situations where you're starting to look at how do I monetize, how do I have operational improvements in my supply chain, how do I get better visibility into my into my inventory, right? Inventory costing. Yes, you can apply AI in there as well, but the Gen AI part of it is going to come in terms of creation of narratives. How do I give executive reading on where does things lie? We're starting to see a combination of AI plus Gen AI plus other tools. Because when I look at Gen AI is one aspect of it where it can create the narrative, but it to create that solution, you're looking at the entire spectrum of how do I use. Let's not forget the industry is still not grappled with how do I best leverage with AI, and Gen AI is the new buzzword. So how do I combine these things with other toolkits to generate that solution? And that's where I think we're spending a lot of time with our clients.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, Anand, this has really been a fascinating conversation about Gen AI. Certainly not the last of our conversations here, but really excited to see what comes down the pipe for life sciences. It's an exciting time.
And Dipan, I really enjoyed this discussion and look forward to many more such discussions, and happy to share what we are doing in the market.